Hi, so we're going to start this new project, cartoon selfie, or split cartoon selfie, where half of the image is just the photo and the other half is drawn in. So before we get started, I just wanted to break down the layers and the idea of what you're going to be seeing. So let me just move this over here, and I just want to change this to overlay. And I'm going to drop down the opacity. So what we're going to be having are 4 different layers on top of our photo. So if I get rid of the photo, there is a little error here. I made a mistake and I kind of drew on top of this layer by accident. But this should be the unedited photo. This should be the original photo that you started with. Then we're going to add an overlay. An overlay is going to be a white overlay. And what we can do is, as we're working, if we want to see our progress of our lines, we can bring up the overlay. And then if we want to keep working, we can bring down the overlay, so it'll let us make those adjustments. The other thing that we're going to need is an outline layer, and that's where we draw all of our picture, all of our lines. So again, with the overlay, when you want to see your progress, you can kind of just make your picture faded. Just to kind of see your progress. Okay. The other thing that we need also is when we start to color, we're going to make a layer underneath the outlines, and it's going to be for our color. Let me make the outlines invisible so you can see that it's just brushes that are put on here. I made some adjustments. I have fuzzy brushes. I was playing around with different options and different effects to create some shadowing. I did some shading and some highlights, and we'll go over that at another time. And then the last layer is going to be the background, and the background's behind the color. The color is going to be all your positive space, and then the background's going to be in the background. So if I make them go away, you can see even the background can kind of go over the area that you're coloring in, because that will just go right on top of it. So that's what this design is going to be. So we're going to go through, we're going to take our picture, we're going to start drawing our outlines, and then later on we're going to be starting talking about color. So let's just get started. First thing you're going to need is a photo. So I'm going to show you Photo Booth today, which is a way that you can actually use the camera on your MacBook, on your Mac computer, and you can take a photo. You also have one on your Chromebooks, I believe. You can use a camera there. But if you're planning to do it in class, you can use an app called Photo Booth. So we're going to head over to the Launchpad on your dock, and it's right here, Photo Booth. And you might need to look at different pages, but it should be right on the first one. And here it is. Here I am. And you can see I took some pictures earlier, and they save them down below here. So as you take a photo, I'm going to hit the camera down here. The camera shows up right at the top of your monitor, and you'll know it's on because you'll see a green light right next to the little dot that's on the top of the monitor. So you hit this camera icon right there, and it'll give you a countdown, and you look up at the green light, and it'll take a picture. There we are. So you can see here's the pictures, and they just build up over here. If you don't want a picture, you can certainly clear these out by hitting the X's on there. Now, if there is one that you want to use, I would say to bring it over to your desktop. So what you can do is you can take them from that bottom area, and you can just drag them onto your desktop. Make a new folder. You can right-click and hit New Folder and name that folder Cartoon Selfie. And that's where you can bring over your pictures. Now, I believe I brought this one over already. Yeah. And you can bring them all over, if you have to decide. And then you can always clear them out. Once you brought them over, you can just clear them out, and you can start again. If you want to use pictures that are off the internet instead, you can certainly do that. But I just wanted to show you how you can use Photo Booth to take your own picture. So let's head back over to Photopea. And let's open up the picture that I want to use. I'm just going to save those. So I'm going to open from computer. So I'm going to go ahead and find it. It's on my desktop. It's in Cartoon Selfie, and you can see that I had a couple of them. I wasn't too sure which one I wanted to use. Let's say that I want to use this one. Okay, So we're going to crop it. That's the first thing that we do after we open it. We're going to go to the crop tool, and the size I'll have written on the board, and I'll have it in Google Classroom. But you want to change it to from free to fixed size, and it's going to be 3,000 pixels by 2,400 pixels. So you can drag this down. It's a lot of pictures, so that's why it's probably this bounding box is probably going to be a bit bigger than your photo. So just set it up where you want it to be. You can get up closer. If you feel that you want this picture to be a portrait orientation, instead of being wide, you want it to be tall, you can take the two arrows right here. If you click on it, it'll switch it. So then that way it's in a portrait orientation. But I actually like the width. I like the wider one. So let me shrink this down, get it to where I want it to be. I don't need to get all of the background in. And then once you like it, you can hit the check. Command minus will zoom out. Command plus zooms in. Command 0 will fit it on the page. So after I'm done cropping, you probably want to head over to another tool besides the crop tool. Otherwise, you're going to get those weird squares. Now, after you crop it, you are now going to add 2 layers. So it's the folded page right at the bottom of the layers window. And one of them is going to be outline. So you can double click on the title, and one's going to be called outline or outlines. And then I'm going to double click on this one. I'm going to call this one overlay. So the outlines are going to be on top, and that's where you're going to draw all of your black lines. The overlay is going to get filled in with white. So I'm going to head over to the paint bucket, which shares a button with the gradient. So if you see gradient and you don't see paint bucket, just hold down that cursor on top of that gradient and you'll see the paint bucket. We're also going to change the foreground color to white, and we're going to dump right in there. So it's going to cover up that photo, but you can just lower the opacity on that overlay so you can see it. Okay? And you'll be adjusting this as you work. Outlines. So we're going to be drawing outlines on top of this picture. I actually zoomed out a little bit so I can take these lines off the page, so I'm not just getting a section of it. We're going to use the brush. One setting we have to change. You're going to go to the brush tool. Most of your settings are up here. The size, bring your hardness up to 100%. But the one that is not located here is actually in this brush panel right here. You can see it's a little brush with some lines. Hit that. Set your spacing up. If it's not down to 1%, bring it down to 1%. I'll show you why. Because if you start drawing your lines, let me set it to black. If you start drawing your lines and you have like this little choppiness to it, by moving the spacing down, it makes it much smoother. So make sure your spacing is down to 1%. Okay. And then you can get rid of the panel just by hitting that button again. So the thickest line is going to be the one that divides the picture. Make it about, I don't know, between 20 and 30 or so. That should be the thickest line that you're going to have. You can divide the picture several ways, right? You can go across this way. You can go down the middle here. It doesn't even have to be right in the middle if you wanted it to be like, you know, having a little bit more on one side than the other. What you can also do, and you can see in Artsonia some kids did this, is that you can actually split it up into 2. And then let's say that you want the middle to be the cartoon and you want the other sides to be not cartoon. So, you know, you have to kind of plan your attack. I'm just going to go right down the middle. Keep it pretty simple, just like that. Now you have to pick whichever side you want to put your cartoon on. I'm going to say, let's put my cartoon on the right side. So when you start to draw, you're using the brush, and you're going to be using different widths of brush. I would say around the edge here and around the face, you probably, and like the shoulder, that's probably going to be thicker lines. But stuff like, you know, this little gesture line or this little whatever expression line that I have, and, you know, maybe on the nose and eyebrows and hair, you know, my strands of hair, you probably want to use thinner lines. Okay? And it goes all the way down to 1. This is your thinnest line that you'll have. You can barely see it. Okay? So you can use different lines. So I'm going to start by, you can move your size like this, or you can use the brackets next to the letter P on your keyboard. And last time I was using about 15 around the hair. So when you start drawing it, I'm just going to outline. You don't have to get in every strand. You don't have to get in every wrinkle, but I figured that's probably an important line to draw. Just around there. And even around the edge of the face. And I'm using a brush, I think it was 15. Not looking down yet. So, finish it off. If you make a mistake, you can always go to the eraser tool. The eraser has the same attributes as far as changes and stuff. So the brackets next to the letter P will change the size of my eraser. So some people just use the letter B to go to the brush tool and the letter E to go to the eraser tool. So that way you're not clicking around all over the place. Alright, so I'm doing the best I can to draw. I suggest to zoom in, and again, if you make a mistake or you don't like the line, you can either do Command Z, which will undo the last thing you did, or you can just use the eraser. Take your time with this, guys. So if you wanted to kind of work on the bigger stuff first, like the nose, oh, I don't like that, like the nose and the mouth. Again, if you zoom in, it really, really helps get your lines much more accurate. Actually, I'm going to use a thinner line for that gesture line there. Maybe around the teeth. Some areas are going to be easier to draw than others, and you're going to get better at it as you go along. If you feel that you're not feeling like you're in control of your mouse, try moving the mouse to a different part on your table. You can also lift the mouse and bring it over to a different part. You can move your hand a little bit. And then again, to see your progress, Command 0, you can actually take the overlay, excuse me, and you can see how you're making out. Okay? And so this first video is just talking about how you're making your lines. So again, all of your lines are going to be on outlines, and working with different size brushes and zooming into your picture helps a lot. If you go to the zoom tool, you drag back and forth, right and left. You can go to the shortcut. The letter Z on your keyboard will take you to the zoom tool. The letter B for brush will take you to the brush tool. The letter E will take you to the eraser tool. So while I don't expect you guys to do this too quickly, try some things out and stuff, you're going to get better as time goes on, and things are going to get a little bit more easy. Okay? So good luck with it all, and we'll touch base after you finish all of your lines.